Ok, dovremmo esserci. Ok, a quanto pare, aspetta che mi muto qui perché sennò...
Sei online.
C'è un po' di ritardo. Ok, quindi... So anyway, we're on Zoom and on YouTube. The interpreter is interpreting and the recording of Spanish is going. We're all set, right?
Right.
Okay. And I need to pin myself. I'm not going to forget this time. Boom. Okay. Sorry for the 1 minute delay. I always try to start in time, but stuff happens. All right. Let me collect my thoughts. I already did all my prayers. Like I said last time, I do them in advance. And I usually start with all my disclaimers, about the cicadas, so I can't do anything about this noise. And I didn't have the easiest night last night, so I'm a bit, down. Okay, let's see. Do I have anything else to say? No, I think we can begin. Welcome, everybody, and let me see in 1 second if I can split the screen so I can see if anything happens on YouTube too. And this is our second encounter on this presentation on Pranayama, the Gaudiya perspective on Pranayama. Now, by Gaudiya perspective, I mean that most of what's said about Pranayama is in yogic terms, and yoga has a very specific goal, and it's not necessarily a devotional one. There is mention of Bhagavan and devotion and God in yoga, but I just wanted to give it not a Gaudiya spin, just like I said last time, the goal of these classes that Padmanabh Maharaj is asking me to give originally, for next time, if he wants to ask, if he's going to ask me again, I'll probably choose a more, Vaishnav Gaudiya focused theme and just do like everybody else is doing. But what was important for me is also to address this mentality and attitude that I perceive sometimes in the Western Vaishnav community, and even in the Indian one, of like absolutism, or the very categorical in there. This is this is like this is not like that. And in my estimation, there's nothing more flexible, more open-minded than a Gaudiya Vaishnav. A spiritualist in general is, should be someone who doesn't see things in terms of black and white. But a Gaudiya Vaishnav is, should be particularly open-minded. A spiritualist in general should be focused on themes and realities such as the absolute, the eternal, the infinite. So, human nature at the same time is such that we tend to focus on other things, on like relativity. Well, if it's like this, how can it be like that? So my attempt is to just chip at this callosity that I perceive is formed in the mentality and attitude of many Vaishnavas, not because I'm qualified for it, but it's something I feel strongly about. And now, I don't mean to advocate a Kanishtadhikari approach either. Like, a beginner spiritualist will very much behave like everything goes, everything is fine, it's all spiritual. And then, as most of you know, Madhyamadikari is somebody who is more able to discriminate. Wait a second, this is not everything is spiritual, not in the same way, not at the same time or at the same level of advancement. But I do perceive this how would you say, in the name of the highest goal, because we do have a very, very lofty goal. It's beyond ego-effacing, which is common to many spiritual paths. We have a very specific goal. If we want to talk about negative numbers and positive numbers, we don't only want to reach the zero from this realm of negative numbers that is not our turf. It's not the level of the frequency of consciousness that we belong. There is a positive number realm, and within that we're very specific in our goal, which is Braja Bhakti. So not to beat about the bush, it's not only acknowledging, it's a way to not only acknowledge God and the higher power and the fact that acknowledge consciousness, to become conscious of ourselves, our body, and the dynamics of material energy and spiritual energy, and to acknowledge that there is a personhood to the divine. But then we want to get deeper and deeper into God's inner absorption, what he cares about in his omnipotence and omnipresence and omniscience, what he does. And it turns out that he likes to play. He is, what is that thing called? Cosplay? He likes to impersonate. Well, he likes to be personified. Like we said last time, the absolute is just as personal as impersonal. And that's something we need to wrap our minds around to begin with. So we see that God likes to feel and behave like he's a child and a cowboy who has friends, who has girlfriends, who has parents, and all kinds of things happening. Just like we used to do, at least in my childhood memories, during recess. I'd be a princess and you would come and save me, and then you would say this and you would say that. Meanwhile, it was just a bunch of kids in the courtyard of a school. But they were really vivid moments. There was the studying, there was the awareness that I'm a schoolboy, you're a schoolgirl, you're another schoolboy. But then what got us really ticking was the moment of recess, that 1 hour that included eating and then just running around and playing and imagining things. So God does the same. And our goal is to have a place in God's drama, in God's daydream of sort. And which is a wonderful thing and a unique thing that I don't see offered in any other spiritual movement or school of thought. So, as wonderful as it is, it pains me to see this very, calcifying mentality and an attitude in a community of Gaudiya Vaishnavas when they say things like, I was saying last time, they demonize. A Vaishnav doesn't demonize, they should Krishnaize, which is actually a term that Prabhupada used. A Vaishnav sees the summum bonum, the ultimate goal in everything, even in the simplest things around them, because their consciousness vibrates at a higher level. Ultimately, to become Krishna conscious means to vibrate at the same frequency that not only God, but Krishna vibrates. So, to be liking what he likes, disliking what he dislikes, etc. So I was saying, it pains me to see certain attitudes like, oh, we don't do, in this case, pranayama, or, oh yeah, astrology, or this, or that. The truth is that, I'm sorry for the long introduction, but, it's all part of the same talk. The truth is that we are not that tight, essentialist community of Gaudiya Vaishnavas that was I don't know, 100 years ago in pilgrimage sites like Mayapur, Vrindavan, where people would leave their family and lives to exclusively dedicate themselves to a life of bhajan. The community, for better or for worse, the Gaudiya Vaishnava community, especially worldwide, has kind of relaxed and gotten comfortable compared to the years during Prabhupada's movement when, it was, in one sense, kind of artificial. Like the person who was a hippie 1 month ago, now they're like hardcore preachers. But such was, the extent of Prabhupada's energy and charisma, because that's what he was concerned with. That was his sense of urgency. So everybody got sucked in it. So there were a lot of brahmacharis, there were a lot of couples, but there were like grihastha brahmacharis, as Prabhupada, the term that he coined. I remember when I joined my Guru Maharaj's mission, Srila Tripurari Maharaj's mission in 96, that there was a magazine, and I joined from Italy. There was a magazine in the States called, whatever it was called. I think it was the Krishna Culture Catalog. And at the end, there were ads for exorcisms or brahmanas offering their services for, all the samskaras for the babies. And I was like, wait a minute, we've become a religion. We're not a group of spiritualists anymore. And like I said, for better or for worse, is it bad per se? Is it good per se? It's just the way it's become. We're more relaxed in our pursuit because, as Sridhar Maharaj says, where connotation increases, denotation decreases. When denotation increases, connotation decreases. So in other words, quantity versus quality. We are many, many more than we used to be years ago. And so, I don't want to say the quality, but, the intensity of our focus has relaxed a little bit. And, we have brahmacharis and sannyasis with laptops and bank accounts and, they're all on social media. On account of that, why demonize certain things? Oh, we don't do that. Why look down on anything when you could be like, I usually joke about that to myself, not like I discuss these things with anybody. But you know how a lot of Christians in the US, they have these like wristbands or a little ribbon where their badge hangs, or a bunch of keys that have WWJD, what would Jesus do? Which is, I guess, a good way of, reminding yourself how to behave throughout the day. And I usually ask myself, would Rupa Goswami do this? Would Madhavendra Puri do this? I don't see Rupa Goswami going, we don't do this. They were always very meek, very accommodating. Again, in an Uttamadhikari way, not in a Kanishtadhikari way. So they weren't just naive and thinking everybody's fine, everything is good, everything goes. But they were making this effort, not even effort, the level of their absorption and consciousness was such that they were seeing the common ground, which is Krishna and the love he represents, the good, the wonderfulness that he represents, the absolute that he is. He is the common ground and a substratum. So it would be good to see the world through Krishna's eyes. That was a big introduction. So, pranayama is just one of the topics I chose because of a few realizations I had over a few months in the past, and it's just an excuse to just talk about Krishna consciousness. It just sounded better than naming this series of 4 encounters. Syamasundara is talking about Krishna consciousness. Yeah, right. I'm really the least qualified in terms of personal example and knowledge. I do have some insights by the mercy of of everybody, my Guru and Krishna, and just, my previous karma, and that probably makes me see things in a certain way, but that's about it. Now, talking about pranayama, this encounter is about the physicality of pranayama, and in one sense, the negative side. So, the reason why the Gaudiya Vaishnavas and Acharyas look down to it as a distraction, etc., etc. If time allows, I'll be talking about all this stuff. You see, as much as I gave this introduction, sorry, I'm distracted by this ultrasonic cicada. I hope it's not too distracting for you guys too. So as much as I gave this introduction, I feel some kind of guilt for talking about physical stuff like pranayama, and we'll be discussing all the qualities of prana, not the qualities, the types of prana, what it does to the body, etc., etc. But like I said last time, it's good to know what it is we're talking about so that we can talk about it further. Okay, pranayama means stretching of prana, is one translation. It's not breath control. That is a good point to make. It's not about breath control. To understand what pranayama is, we need to understand what prana is. And I need to drink, I'm sorry. Prana is energy. Essentially, it's the energy that pervades the material world. It's the potential, just like, fire is contained in wood. So there is energy that can be gotten out of everything, that just pervades everything. But it needs to be tapped from, if that's how you use that verb. In other words, we need to be able to know the key, know the method to absorb that energy. Now this prana, by the way, prana is, it appears a lot in our songs and prayers. Pranadhana, Gopi Pranadhana, Madan Manohar, we say in the song commonly known as Yashomati Nandan. Gopi Pranadhana, even if there's an extra A for meter, Gopi Pranadhana, it means, it's translated as the life and soul of the gopis. Prana, dhana. Literally, prana means vital force and dhana means treasure. So Krishna is the life and treasure of the gopis. So prana is really what holds your body together. What, when it leaves the body, although all the ingredients are there, you don't consider the person alive. Of course, the soul is also the dynamo of this kind of energy. But I mean to say that a body is also a source of prana. Not a dead body per se. But so let's see what prana comes from. You could get prana from sunlight, for example, or just cosmic influence. I remember when my mother was sick with cancer, I was reading all sorts of books. And one of them was about this Canadian lady who was diagnosed with 5th level cervical cancer. And she put herself in the hands of an Indian doctor who had her fast. By the way, I'm not recommending any of these practices. But it just so happens that this guy had her at first eat raw fruit and vegetables, then just juiced, then strained juice, and then just water with molasses for minerals and water with sea salt, and then just water charged by sunlight. She would put a bottle of water in the sun to just absorb the prana of the sun. And in order to kind of like wash away the cancer and whatever was toxic in her body. So that struck me. Also, my Ayurvedic doctor at one point told me that for my metabolism, for my the kind of for my doshas and the way they are, rather than fasting, I should boil water for 20 minutes, put it in a thermos, and sip it every hour or something. And I was like, what does it matter if you boil water for 1 minute or 20 minutes? So my only explanation, I didn't ask her, but it's that it would absorb the prana of fire. The 5 elements in and of themselves are source and vehicles of prana. So, good water. Water, as a side point, I've seen researches of like, alternative scientists discovering or approaching water as a liquid crystal, like melted ice. And they say that water is like a computer, like a quartz-based computer, but it's a very peculiar substance, which is why when you do achaman, you infuse a mantra in water and then you sip it. Or when you like make a toast to health, you invoke health into the liquid and then you drink it. But anyway, this is a side point. So good water has, like fresh running water has prana. And then sunlight, the earth has prana, could be a vehicle of prana. You could see yogis that just bury themselves and they just absorb prana through the land, the earth itself. Our own body can be a vehicle of prana, like when we touch, if you hurt yourself, you put your hand there to use your own prana to heal. Prana is this vital force and healing force. And like I said, the actual body is prana. If you think of a carrot, an organic carrot that you just plucked, you would intuitively know and think that it has more prana than a carrot that was grown conventionally and that's been sitting on a shelf for 2 weeks. Now, does it mean that prana means vitamins? Does it mean that prana means photons through the sunlight? It's correlated. It corresponds to the presence of vitamins, of hydration, of cosmic radiations, but it doesn't mean that per se. Just like breath is not prana in and of itself. Like pranayama, of all these ways of absorbing prana, you could have good food, but can you have good food all the time? Do you eat all the time? Do you touch the ground all the time? Etc., etc. It stands to reason that breathing, which is something we do at every second, or every minute if you're a yogi, and you can just breathe in and out only once a minute, is admittedly the easiest and most available way to absorb prana. So, and that's why it's advocated and talked about. So pranayama means stretching of the prana, because we talked about last time about breathing in and out, how everybody's life is measured in breaths. So it stands to reason that if you make your breaths longer and longer, let's say if you only have 100 breaths available in one lifetime, you would stretch your life lengths by breathing slower. But there are more and more considerations that justify this idea of stretching breath. So pranayama means stretching of breath, or in a way absorption of this prana. So you breathe in and then you absorb the prana and then you breathe out by the mechanics of our body. And 5 types of prana are described. When it comes to pranayama, I'm sorry, is Sakirati saying something? No, I get distracted by any blinking. No, okay, sorry. What was I saying? So when it comes to absorbing prana as pranayama through breathing, there are 5 vayus, they're called. Vayu means wind. And when prana is absorbed through air, these types of prana are called vayus. So we're going to talk about the technicalities of that for a while. In the Vedas, 5 types are acknowledged. Prana itself is the air coming in. It's called ascending prana, counterintuitively, because when you breathe in, the air goes in. And yes, it goes down, but it's called ascending prana. But it's the prana involved with taking in So, for all intents and purposes, in the context of breathing, it means inhalation. And then, again, vayu means wind. So, what's the difference between air and wind? It's the movement. That's why in the Vedas it is said that there's a vayu that moves the planets around, which sounds like ridiculous or simplistic. Yeah, right. Planets are moved by wind. The Vedas don't know. It means movement, like I said. Wind means air in movement, and all these pranas inside the body are concerning different movements and movements in our body. I like to make a little side point about this approach to the Vedas because it's another topic I feel strongly about. I see among the devotees a literalist approach of like, whatever the Vedas say, it must be right, it must be true, and I need to beat people over the head about this point or this view. And then there's the overly, what would you call it, preaching approach. So, talking about planets, since we were talking of that, some things I will never be able to explain myself. Like the Vedas say the fleas are born out of sweat. Okay. But in general, the attitude we should have with the scriptures is one of humility, period, of being children. There's the name Vedamata, the concept of Vedamata. The Vedas are our mother. So any child who thinks they know better than their mothers, who know what the child will go through and what he's going to say and how they're going to behave, is just childish. And it's important that whenever the Vedas say something weird, we just first of all take a step back and just accept it. It must be true at some level. It's me who doesn't understand it. It's me who hasn't quite understood or doesn't know. And I'm going to show in a few minutes how pranayama, what was said in a few aphorisms in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and all the scriptures about yoga and breathing and everything, they sound so reductive, simplistic, or fantastical, like the sun channel and the moon channel. And then science catches up and demonstrates or shows what the Vedas had been saying and all along with a few words or a different vernacular than what we're used to in scientific terms. I'll make another example. Imagine we are at the mall. Now, there's a mixed audience here from all over the world, but everybody knows what a mall is, a shopping center. Most shopping centers have a map of the place, which is vertical, and it shows the first floor, the second floor, and it's hard to explain with words, but suppose we want to go to J.C. Penney's, which is what is J.C. Penney? It's just a department store. They sell everything. And all the businesses are shown on this map as squares or with whatever shape they have. And I could easily say to a friend of mine, oh, look, JCPenney is here right above McDonald's. Now, is JCPenney's above McDonald's? No, it's next to it. On the map, it looks like above because the map is vertical. It's two-dimensional instead of three-dimensional. And but my friend has no problem understanding what I'm saying. JCPenney's is on top of McDonald's, and there is a big 50 number on McDonald's and a 51 number on JCPenney's. But then we go there and we see that JCPenney's is here, McDonald's is on the right, and there's no 50 or 51. It was just a representation that made sense to two people who had the same context, linguistic context. So I'm saying this because I just remembered the usual debate about the Vedas saying that the sun is closer than the moon to us, and people getting all confused. How can the Vedas say that? And then, some people would just believe it, just say that science is wrong, it's a conspiracy, and they don't know, they cannot measure properly. And then you have the other extreme when they say, oh, it just means that the influence of the sun is more important because it makes vegetables grow, or because it warms our planet, or because it, whatever, is just more prominent in our lives than the moon. Which is fine. It's what you can say to certain people who wouldn't understand any more or any better. But it could also explained in ways that for some reason when I explain it, or when I mention devotees who explain it, I get these blank stares, like they don't know what I'm talking about. Somehow it makes sense to me, but it's like the way you explain the cosmos with an astrolabe. Sorry for the tangent. I'll go back to the original point. You know, the orbit of the sun is represented on a closer plane than the orbit of the moon, in a way of representing the universe according to Vedic cosmography. So in that sense, the sun is closer than the moon. It's like saying J.C. Penney's is above or on top of McDonald's. My generic point is that we should keep a humble stance when it comes to Vedic statements. So, when it comes to prana, it's described in these terms. There is prana going in, and then there is prana going out, which means the exhalation, and it's called apana, and it governs any expulsion, any, how do you say, just anything that goes out. So, I don't remember if it's all the examples, but like coughing, sneezing, burping, but also urination, evacuation, menstruation, ejaculation, all this energy going out, it's governed by this apana. Another movement or value or prana described is samana, so assimilation. And now all these pranas have a seat in the body. So the apana is in the lower part of the body. The assimilation is in the stomach. So it's the movement that involves digestion. And also in the mental sphere, there's like this assimilation of an experience, just taking stuff in and make use of it, just like digestion does on the physical term. Then there's vyana, which is the all-pervasive prana, so it doesn't have a seat in and of itself. It's just a circulation, like the blood circulation, the lymphatic system, the bones, the connective tissue. You don't need to specify. That's why I said the Vedas just say there's a prana that pervades the whole body. They don't need to say circulatory system, the lymphatic system. It will make sense on the physical level, even if you don't know. You know, enzymes are called the fire in the body. Where Agni presides in the body corresponds to the pancreas, the liver, the stomach, where all the digestion happens. So this sort of language is used. And then there is Udana, which has obviously because it's the prana of communication. So it's got to do with growth, like the thyroid governs the growth in the body, and expression. And like I said last time, during my prayers before these classes, I pray that my words are charged with prana, because sound vibration is also a vehicle of prana. You can hear the same words, the same speech from a person, from two people, but the one who has a feeling and a knowledge and an experience and can convey this energy in their words will have more of an impact because of the prana conveyed in those words. So these are did I say them all? Prana, upana, samana, vyana, and udana. So now, in light of what I said at the beginning, because we have brahmacharis with bank accounts and laptops and profile on social media, is it that bad to have a generic understanding and knowledge of how our bodies work? Like, to me, since I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism, a lot of things started to make sense. whatever, the thyroid is connected with communication. And so a afflicted thyroid has got to do with truths not said, such as being in the closet or holding a secret or being misunderstood. Every time you speak, you get interrupted. Like, try to go to a lunch conversation here in Madovan. It's really hard to, it feels like everybody wants to say their bit. And it's like to find an opening for people with, affliction at this area, it's very, very stressful. It doesn't mean I should be talking all the time. But I was just making a point of knowing one's body. And the same applies to astrology. In Christianity, it's said a lot that in Christianity, they try to see astrology as an enemy or something bad. Like, no, we believe in God and we trust God and we're surrendered to God. We don't run by what astrology and horoscopes dictate. There's some of that in our movement too. But, it's true that Jyotish, which is Vedic astrology, is very not predictive. It's more like the auspicious time to do this, the auspicious time to do that. And that shouldn't hinder our devotional sensibilities and approach to life. Like, oh, I'm supposed to do this seva, because you would imagine that a Vaishnava is always engaged in seva, but it's not the right time of the day, so I'm not going to do it. That's where, we should be more firm and say, don't let astrology rule your life more than your seva to Krishna and Guru should. Or, so is it that bad to know that, I don't know, like we have our meetings here on Wednesday, because Wednesday is presided over by Mercury, who rules over communication, as opposed to Tuesday, ruled by Mars, which is very martial in its dealings. Like, we don't want our meetings to turn into a trial. Oh, actually, no, we used to have them on Wednesdays. Now we have them on Fridays. But my original point was on Wednesday because of that. So is it really that bad to have this sort of knowledge and sensibilities that we can apply to our material lives, given that we're no longer, if we ever were as a movement, so focused on the highest goal, which we should have, but we also have children and career and Netflix and Facebook and whatnot. So it's good to kind of develop horizontally and kind of know what ingredients we have around us, whether it's the benefits of breathing or, knowing that, if you want to have a manager, it's better to have a Capricorn, I don't know, as opposed, if you want to have an accountant, it's better to have a Virgo, that kind of knowledge. What's wrong with that? So that's why I understand the mentality and the attitude behind cautioning against certain things, but in the absolute way, on a more, on a relative plane, I think it's better to see how can I engage this, whether it's astrology, pranayama, yoga, whatnot, history, politics, in a Krishna conscious way, like Sridhar Maharaj, or like my Guru Maharaj was saying about Sridhar Maharaj. He wasn't talking about the highest topics necessarily. He was talking about everyday's themes, or like the devotees' struggles at a very physical or mental level, but from the highest point of view. All right, so what was I talking about? The 5 kinds of prana, and then, I didn't finish the point I was making about the language of the Vedas. Prana is flows, this energy that we absorb through breathing, but not only, but primarily through breathing, flows through, to be honest, I forgot how many thousands of nadi. Nadi means stream, could mean river, like the district of Gaudiya in Bengal is where all the Ganges ramifies in all those streams. That's why it's called Gaudiya, because it's full of nadis. And you could see them as nerves, the nervous system. And there are 2 nadis that are the main ones that go from the first chakra to the last one, which is here. The first one is between the anus and the genitals. So if you sit erect, You know about the chakras. Everybody knows about the chakras. So the goal of pranayama and yoga is to awaken this energy called kundalini. Kundala means snake. Kundalini is feminine because it's Shakti, it's an energy. And it goes like a snake because some people see it as our DNA, the ellipse of the DNA. So basically you turn on all of your DNA and all of your potential on a physical level when you can awaken the kundalini and go from the first chakra all the way to the seventh. So we were talking about the physicality of prana. It's a very, very physical approach, even if it has a transcendental goal. It's just the very beginning of transcendence. The goal of yoga is beyond matter, but not too much, not too far in. We'll see that in the future. But I'm opening too many parentheses here. But anyway, talking about pranayama cannot be done outside of a yogic context. Pranayama is a limb of Ashtanga yoga. So it's not like you can just extrapolate pranayama. And there's a lot of talk of breath work in the West. They take the principles of pranayama and, Americans, there's something good and they have to make it better. No criticism there. I'm about to participate in one of these things with Muralidhar, who is here and who is diving deeper and deeper into this breath work, and he's learning how to give seminars. But the Western people have tapped from pranayama and other experiences, and they're making it a whole science and stuff. Kind of doing away with the spiritual aspect of it. But going back to pranayama, within couch in the Vedic context, pranayama is a limb of yoga, and people shouldn't forget that it starts with yama and niyama. You should have a special diet. You should be a brahmachari. That's the first disqualifier. One of the first things my Guru Maharaj says when he extols the glories of bhakti, as opposed to jnana, yoga, and karma, is that to be a yogi, you have to be a brahmachari. You need to contain your semen, because it's the physical semen or sexual energy, because it applies to women as much as men. But you need to contain that sexual energy because it's at the very base of this kundalini that we were talking about. So the first disqualifier, and I have been listening to presentations on videos and podcasts on pranayama, and one was very categorical. He's like, if you have sex, if you cannot contain your sexual energy, your pranayama is useless. Okay. If you're not focused on your breathing in and out, your pranayama is useless. And so that's why I said it's a big disqualifier. It can help you in the pursuit of bhakti, but it's also a distraction. Our acharyas say that pranayama is a distraction because, you get involved so heavily into this practice, like we were saying last time. One of the things I notice is that in yoga, they want to be the master of their minds, their bodies, and by extension the whole world, because you can develop siddhis, you can do amazing things if you can master yoga. But it's over lifetimes, especially in this age where people live on average 100 years. Those who can manage to do something, levitate or do whatever, heal people in this lifetime, they haven't started in this lifetime. So it's a very, very absorbing pursuit, and a very physical one. And if our goal is to be absorbing Krishna and in the pure transcendence and become Krishna consciousness, in that way you can understand how our acharyas kind of discourage us to focus on from focusing on pranayama and any yogic pursuit, let alone the pride, the sense of power that can come from these yogic practices. So I was saying the last time, I was noticing how to be a yogi and master your mind and senses and the world, you end up becoming a slave to this practice. waking up very early in the morning, do austerities, having a certain diet, not being able to have a sex life, etc., etc. Whereas bhakti, in comparison, if you want to, make it very simple, is all about chanting, singing, dancing, eating well, and having friends and hanging out with your pals who are like-minded. So you can see the contrast is the comparison is a stark one. And so I noticed how physical it is. Like I said, if you do this while having sex at the same time, while not being focusing, it's all for naught. Whereas bhakti, if you do it while being distracted, you will still have some result, some success. We don't advise that, but that is the power of bhakti, because it's not us wanting to be the master of matter, which can be done in a way. It's us acknowledging who the master is, who the owner is, who the source of everything is, and taking the subordinate position, which is our constitutional position, because there can only be one center, and we are in circumference. And then by situating ourselves in the circumference, we focus on the center, and then we realize, as Sridharmar says in a very mind-spinning way, that the center is everywhere. Because again, we're talking about the absolute. But anyway, in bhakti we acknowledge who the owner is, who the source is, and we take our due position of subordinate, and we sort of benefit from all the omnipotence and omniscience and omnipresence of God, plus much more. And we don't have to be trapped in all the trappings of the sadhana of a yogi. And like I said, it's very, very physical. Like in karma yoga, if you do the sacrifices wrong, if you say a word wrong, you don't have the achieved result. And reading about yoga and karma, yoga and pranayama, ashtanga yoga, it's very, very physical. I used to have a more romantic vision of yoga, because it's a spiritual path, but it is very physical, and I can see how in the West, again, Western mentality is always about enhancing or in a way, desacralizing, just taking the sacred out of everything, make Christmas a consumeristic occasion, St. Patrick's Day, just as long as you can drink or have fun or just, serve your own purposes. But anyway, so nowadays with yoga, I've seen everything. Latex yoga, beer yoga, like at every asana you have a sip. I don't even know if they're jokes or they believe it. Naked yoga, goat yoga. And even without any of that, yoga is just it's just gymnastics. Gymnastics that make you feel good. Because they have this like breathe in, and they affect your mind too. Much more than the endorphins you would get from any other physical activity. But no, it's a spiritual path. And while being a spiritual path, it's just very physical. I just realized how, like I said, there's yama, niyama, and then there is asanas. So let's go in order. Ashtanga yoga means 8 limbs. Yama, niyama, asanas, pranayama, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. I guess not yama, niyama. What is it? Yama, niyama, asanas. Pratyahara goes before or after pranayama. I can't remember. And then pranayama, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. And you cannot extrapolate breathing for your own purposes if you haven't done the previous ones. That's why I said you got to be a celibate and contain your energy, your sexual energy, which is, well, the first representation of this energy that we were talking about. Otherwise, it's all wasted in a way. And so what I'll be talking about next week will be about the realizations, the insights we can have as Gaudiya Vaishnavas and spiritualists, and also the benefit that we can draw from that. Now we're talking about the technicalities, the physicalities of pranayama, and in a way the negative aspect. Like I said, it's a distraction. It's very limiting. It's limiting. because, like I started to say and I never finished, it's very, very physical. It really makes you realize how your body is just a machine, a physiological machine with valves, with, we have our battery, which is the solar plexus, and then we have our air filter, which is the lungs. We have the fuel, which is, well, the blood in a way, like the food and the air and everything. It's all to feed the blood that feeds the organs. And then we have the engine, which is the heart. And it stands to reason that if you don't close a valve all the way, then you have leaks. You have a decrease in the performance. And yoga is very much about you have to have your back straight. That's another thing. If you don't have your back absolutely straight, pranayama is useless. All right. To have your back straight, you need to do all kinds of asanas. A devotee once told me that asanas means, if we start from the perception of ourselves as a soul, the body is the seat of the soul. It's the vehicle of the soul. So asanas twist and stretch the body like a beach chair. The beach chair, you can like lie down, kick your feet up, or midway, or you can recline more or less, and you can turn it into a bed, a cot. So that's what we're doing with our body. We're making it a comfortable seat for the soul, which is wrapped by a mental body and wrapped by a physical body, so that the goal is to not move at all. Comfortable and symmetric, you need to have balance in your body so that when you stand or sit still and you breathe, all that to influence your mind, your nervous system, and ultimately your mind, you don't get distracted by the electric, in a way, interference of a muscle tight in your neck. Or, lack of balance means that you need to contract one muscle more than another to keep straight, to keep up. And that's all a distraction. It's like white noise. You want to be perfectly balanced, which also is a way of neutralizing the duality of the world, what pulls you in what direction or another. So this physical symmetry helps you, first of all, not feel any muscle tension. At some point you forget your body, you just act on the mental level, and then you go higher and higher, finer and finer in your absorption, so you start meditating and all that. It's like a sensory deprivation center. What is it called? Sensory deprivation chamber. I really, really wanted to do that experience. Apparently you just float in water with Epsom salt that makes the water very thick. And it's a body temperature, so you're floating in this water in pitch darkness, so you don't see anything, you don't hear anything because they're insonorized. You float in water at your own temperature, you don't perceive any wind, any heat, any cold. And so the brain starts to go crazy because it loses this identification with the body. You just don't move. And so you start creating your own reality. You start having visions and hearing things, and because the brain kind of creates a reality. You could see that you could say that at the beginning of the universe, it was like Mahavishnu was in a sensory deprivation chamber, and then he started to dream about the whole material world. I never thought of that. So anyway, when I was in Naples, I saw it advertised. I was like, oh, I want to do it. And it was horrible because it was inside of a gym. I could hear people on the, below me doing hip hop, aerobic or Zumba or whatever it was. So I didn't have any experience. I'm unlucky that way. I can never have esoteric experiences. But anyway, the point is that you need to have asanas. You cannot do pranayama if you haven't done and mastered asanas. You want to have your body perfectly relaxed. Also because prana flows in a relaxed body. Whenever you tense up, you can't speak, you can't, heal or just do anything. Imagine anyway, you got to be relaxed for prana to flow and do all the wonders that it does in your body, from keeping you healthy to healing other people to developing siddhis and whatnot. Now we're running out of time. Did I say everything I wanted to say? While I'm thinking about that, I can ask you if there are any questions or comments, and we can probably wrap it up. Yeah, I remembered one point that I didn't finish. So if there are not questions in the chat or anybody who wants to unmute themselves, I would go on. Let me see if on YouTube there's anything happening. Yeah, one thing I didn't say was about the Nadis. The Nadis, I can't remember what the sound of the D is. I think it's Nadi. But there's two main ones, Ida and Pingala, which from the first chakra go up, and they meet at every chakra while they spiral up the body. And they're called solar and lunar, and they're connected with heat and cold. And next time we'll talk about the duality, how we can meditate on our breathing and have a lot of realizations on the reality that we live in, all the way to spiritual realities, if the gods assist me, because it's a deep topic, but I've been building up to that one. The third encounter would be what I really want to talk about. So it sounds kind of like fantastical to talk about the sun and the moon, but then it turns out that science finds out that, if you breathe through your nose, which is what you should always do in pranayama, it stimulates certain nerves. And that's why in pranayama it's important whether you breathe through your left nostril or right nostril, because one is connected, or the air turbinating through one nostril, and even if they all meet in the lungs, one stimulates the, can never remember, sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So one stimulates one and the other one stimulates the other. And you can see how one of these nervous systems is all about action. So the fire, the heat of the sun that is invoked to express that it's about action, about reaction, like when you are in danger and there's you hear an alarm, your body goes in a certain mode, which corresponds to a certain kind of breathing, and which is governed by a certain part of the nervous system. And then there is the rest and digest part of the nervous system, which happens when you sleep, when you're at rest, when you don't feel in panic or under attack. So pranayama is also about being in charge of how you breathe. A lot of people breathe through their mouths. They sleep with their mouth open, and maybe next time I'll tell you why I tape my mouth every night, because breathing through your mouth is very bad. So in pranayama you should breathe always through your nose. And one last thing I'll say is that, speaking of correlations, there's a question, so maybe I'll save that. Let's see, I can't see the chat. So Greg says, is this the Greg? Is this
Mohan.
Ram Mohan? Yeah, okay. Welcome. I have a question. Can you please say something about breathing while chanting? Have you experimented at all with this? Thanks so much for this series. Chanting, you mean japa or kirtan? Either way, I haven't paid too much mind to it. Oh, no, not just yet. I'll be talking about that too. I'm a little running behind my own schedule, but I hope I'll be able to discuss everything in time. As far as japa, all I can say about it is that some pranayama is recommended. Next time, maybe in the fourth encounter, we'll talk about all the Vedic quotations, who says what about pranayama, including our saints and acharyas, and where it's mentioned in the scriptures and stuff. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur discourages against pranayama as a distraction. But I think in Hari Bhakti Vilas, it says there is some pranayama recommended before chanting because it stills your mind, it puts you in a meditative state. Most pranayama does. So I don't know about during japa or during kirtan, but I know that it's recommended before. As far as japa, they say the best japa is in the mind. So as long as it goes on in the mind, that's good. I remember once I was pacing up and down and chanting loudly, which is how I prefer to chant. And obviously by chanting you lose breath. So I was going Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And then I took a breath in, and then I went on Hare Ram, and somebody was like, for some reason, he had the need to say, you skipped the Krishna part. I was like, well, no, I was breathing, but I was chanting in my mind, so let's be a little more dynamic about that. So yeah, just breathe normally. What's important is that you chant in your mind. I don't know if you were asking about chanting, like should you breathe in before or after or in between. I wouldn't focus too much on that because, there's nothing more transcendental than the Maha Mantra. No matter how you do it, you will always accrue some results. But like I said, I did read. I haven't investigated it yet because I'm really short of time. I didn't have a whole month to prepare about this month. But by the fourth encounter, I'll be talking about all the quotations and citations, and I'll find this verse that says what pranayama is recommended before japa. Now, Chittahari told me the other day that he was thinking kirtan would be a way of controlling the breath. It's like how we engage the breath. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's a way to see it. But first of all, like I said, pranayama is not a way of controlling the breath. It's a way of engaging the breath. But nobody really, it's like saying, then, anything. We don't take prasadam, we eat. We don't eat, we take prasadam. You could say we don't breathe, we do pranayama during kirtan, I guess. Like we're not obliged, we're not, required to do pranayama. So there's nothing wrong in saying that we do pranayama while doing kirtan, but you don't do it consciously. There's it's good enough if you're focused on the names of Krishna while doing kirtan. And like I said, if you don't breathe consciously, it doesn't really, you need to be really conscious. And I don't know of anybody who during kirtan is conscious. Am I breathing out? Am I breathing in? You're just breathing. You're engaging your breath in devotional service, but that's as far as it goes, in my estimation. Okay, now we're really out of time, and next time, like I said, it's going to be the core of what I meant to talk about, and I'll be trying to address all the loose odds and ends that I couldn't address this time. And I don't see any further questions or comments. I thank you for your patience, both in relation to me and the way I speak, and the theme, because again, I realize it's not the most transcendental, but if it can be of any help and inspiration, that's all I meant to do. And like I said, it was just one way to talk about Krishna, one way or another. And so thank you to everybody, and I'll see you next week.